then, it's been another mental week of transfer news in regards to Manchester City, as there has been so much going down, and I'm going to be bringing you up to date in this video on all of the transfer news over the past week to do with Manchester City transfers in, transfers out, all of those rumors. So click the like button if you do enjoy these type of videos. Make sure you hit the subscribe button as well if you do want to see more of this content. But let's just get straight into all of the transfer news for this week. And we're going to be starting off with the move that looks like it's going to be done in the next week. It is Tjani Rinders to Manchester City, as news came out at the beginning of the week that a difference of 10 million euros has emerged in discussions between Manchester City at 65 million euros and AC Milan at 75 million euros over their respective valuations of Tjani Rinders. Manchester City's open formal offer is expected on/by Monday, with Jack Gorn reporting only a few days later that Manchester City are ramping up their pursuit for Tjani Rinders before the FIFA Club World Cup, with the AC Milan midfielder expected to command a fee more than £55 million this summer. And only a day later, it came out that Manchester City negotiations over a deal for AC Milan's Tjani Rinders are at an advanced stage. And then from that point onwards, all of the reports between Manchester City and AC Milan were starting to come out very positive, as it came out that AC Milan have received a very good proposal from Manchester City for Tjani Rinders, and talks are very positive, with Manchester City wanting a deal in the next days, reports Santi JFM. Reijnders has already said yes to a move, and a deal is almost done on the player's side. And then today we made our first official offer for Tjani Rinders, as it came out, according to Fabrizio Romano, that Manchester City have now submitted their first offer to AC Milan for Tjani Rinders, worth a total of around 60 million euros. This figure is not enough, and negotiations will continue in the next few days. And then other sources have come out with the proposed split of that deal, with 86 Longo reporting today that Manchester City's first offer for Reijnders was made on Thursday evening, 55 million euros plus 5 million euros. And then only about an hour later, it came out breaking that Manchester City and AC Milan have reached an agreement for Tjani Rinders worth approximately 70 million euros in total, including bonuses. Final bureaucratic deals are still to be finalized. And then later that day, it's been reported that internally at Manchester City, they believe a deal for Tjani Rinders is now done, and that Tjani Rinders to Manchester City should be concluded at the beginning of next week, with the basic agreement reached between the two clubs today. And for me, this one is an absolutely sensational piece of transfer business. Tjani Rinders is a classy midfielder. He's going to be that Ilkay Gundogan replacement, and according to the sources, obviously, that I've just shown you, it looks like a deal is very, very close to being done. So I keep my eyes out for it next week, and it looks like the deal will be done around the mark of 70 million euros, which I think is a phenomenal fee, or a very good fee for a player of his quality. But now moving on to a player that we are being very heavily linked to at the moment, which I am absolutely excited over. If we can pull this one off, Cherki to Manchester City is a transfer story which is really gaining traction at the moment, as it came out a couple of days ago that Manchester City have joined the race for Cherki and are looking at Lyon midfielder as a potential summer signing. Clubs widely believe the 21-year-old has a release clause in his contract of around 20 to 25 million, with Santi JFM reporting that Manchester City will focus their efforts on Cherki in the next few weeks for the number 10 role, with Fabrizio Romano confirming on Thursday that Manchester City have now made contact to start initial talks over a deal for Lyon's Cherki. The 21-year-old is top of the list for the number 10 position with Morgan Gibbs-White, while the Frenchman is also aware of Manchester City's interest. But then today, a really exciting piece of information came out, according to Santi JFM, which reports that Cherki has said yes to Manchester City with no issues on personal terms. A deal could be reached around 40 million euros, and Manchester City want to be fast in time for the FIFA Club World Cup, anticipating that other top European sides are also keen. And while obviously, you know, we can't take this as 100% gospel, it is coming from a decently reliable source. And on top of that as well, I know I've seen a lot of people complain about the fact that 40 million euros is above what has been rumored as the release clause. However, what we've got to realize is that Cherki is a very in-demand player, and if Manchester City need to bump up that transfer fee to around 40 million euros, I have no problem whatsoever with that. It's still a very little amount of money for the quality of player that you're bringing in. I mean, still, 40 million euros for a Cherki, absolute bargain, especially when you look at the fact of how much Florian Wirtz was reportedly costing, about 130 million for Liverpool. 40 million for Ryan Cherki, not going to complain one bit, even if it is a little bit more than the apparent release clause in his contract. But while we've just obviously talked about the potential Kevin De Bruyne replacement, I guess it's only right that we start to talk about Kevin De Bruyne himself, because a lot of transfer news has come out in the last week about Kevin De Bruyne, pretty much confirming what my suspicions were, and that was that he will be moving to Napoli this summer, as it has come out that Kevin De Bruyne is expected to finalize a transfer fee to Serie A champions Napoli over the next fortnight, with then it coming out as well that Kevin De Bruyne will fly to Italy next week to hold talks with Napoli hierarchy over a potential 2-year deal, with Fabrizio Romano then confirming that Napoli are to propose a 3-year deal to Kevin De Bruyne worth €6 million net per year for the first 2 seasons, and then €5 million net per year for his 3rd season, plus a signing on fee. And both the Napoli owner and director both came out with comments this week, which is pretty interesting. So take a look at this. Napoli owner Aurelio De Laurentiis definitely absolutely nailed that one. I really think Kevin De Bruyne will now join us. I'm told he's already bought a beautiful house. I spoke to KDB, his wife, his kid this morning. It's been beautiful. Until contracts are signed, we must be careful. With then the sporting director coming out and saying, we've been working on Kevin De Bruyne deal for months and we are now about to see the finish line, which confirms my suspicions, which I thought all along, is that Kevin De Bruyne will join Napoli. And personally for me, I'm happy with this one. Obviously, I would wish he would stay at the club. However, when you think about it, he's still in a sky blue kit. He's going to Serie A, which I think is a perfect league for him in this stage of his career. Obviously, he's slowed down with his legs a little bit, which means in the Serie A, it's not as quick, it's not as physical. So I think it'll be the perfect league for him. And I think he will absolutely cook at Napoli next season. I have no doubts about it. I think him and Romelu Lukaku will strike up that international partnership that they have, take it to club level, and I think he'll do phenomenally next season. So I'm happy for him. As much as I'd love to see him stay at the club, I understand obviously, you know, the reasons kind of behind it, and if we bring Ryan Cherki into replacement, I think it's kind of a great deal all around. But let's move on to some players that could be potentially joining the club as well this summer, and it could be that we bring in a new goalkeeper this season, obviously with Edison being rumoured to potentially leave this summer, and one of those names that has been on the shortlist obviously has been Diogo Costa, but there is another one that has just gone on the shortlist, and that is Espanyol goalkeeper John Garcia has an agreement in principle with Manchester City reportedly, as well as offers from Barcelona and Newcastle. Manchester City are continuing to pursue Porto's Diogo Costa in case of a move for Garcia failing, with the decision in the Spaniards' hands. And for those of you who do not know who John Garcia is, he's a very talented goalkeeper, 24 years of age, who's been playing for Espanyol this season, one of the best goalkeepers in the world performance-wise this season, and probably the best in La Liga as well. So he has had an absolutely unbelievable campaign. He's been a big reason of why Espanyol have stayed up, probably the reason that Espanyol have stayed up this season, and he is a goalkeeper that I think a lot of clubs should be looking at, and obviously it says Barcelona, Newcastle, so he is a player which is very, very interesting. If Manchester City could get him, I think we should go for him. However, the next day, there was a little bit of worrying transfer news that came out, although it isn't from the most reliable source, if I'm being completely honest, so this is yet to be fully confirmed. However, it did come out that Manchester City have now firmly moved on to Porto's Diogo Costa as their main goalkeeper target for this summer, after Espanyol's John Garcia has now narrowed his options down to Newcastle United or Barcelona, which would be disappointing because the difference, in my opinion, between John Garcia and Diogo Costa is quite astronomical. I'm not a big fan of Diogo Costa. I think I've said it a few times before, and I would prefer to go for John Garcia. Obviously, if he isn't going to join us, then we've got to look elsewhere, but if it is between them still, I'd absolutely go for Joe Garcia. But let's move on to another piece of transfer news over a player that we could potentially be signing this summer, and this one is very, very interesting. This is a player that I've been looking at for the last couple of years, thinking to myself, what big club is going to come in for him? Eventually, a big club has to, because he's got so much talent, and it has been reported by Fabrizio Romano this week that Manchester City have now asked for the conditions of a deal for Wolves left-back Ryan Ait-Nouri. The 23-year-old is high on the list of the left-back position, and contacts are expected to continue. And obviously, while a lot of people will be questioning why are we targeting a left-back when we need a right-back, I understand that. However, if Josko Gvardiol is going to be a centre-back going forward for us, then we kind of do need a left-back as well. So I can understand the club's thinking going forward if we sign more of a defensive right-back and then we get an attacking left-back in Ait-Nouri. Obviously, we'll have to see how things develop, but this is an interesting one. Ait-Nouri is a very, very technical, talented footballer, and while he's not the best defender in the world by any means, he is a very, very talented player going forward. And then for a player that was quite heavily linked with his last transfer window, and I think now we're in a different position, I don't necessarily think that we need him. However, news came out about the representatives of Real Madrid forward Rodrigo having been in contact with people close to Manchester City to inquire about both the club and the city. And while I obviously think that Rodrigo is maybe a little bit better than some of the wingers that we do currently have at the club, I do think if we bring in Ryan Cherki, when we've got options like Doku, Savinho, Bob, Foden, we've got so many options in those wide areas, I really just don't think that Rodrigo is necessary. And for me, while obviously Rodrigo is a very talented player, the amount of money that it probably will cost to get Rodrigo from Real Madrid, I personally am just not overly interested anymore. I was a little bit last transfer window. This window, not as much. We've got a lot of wingers at the club that are quite talented. Off the left-hand side, we've got Marmoush. We've got Doku as well. Off the right-hand side, we've got Foden. We've got potentially Cherki coming in who can play off the right-hand side. Oscar Bob, Savinho. So we've got a lot of options in those wide areas. I just don't think it would make sense to bring in Rodrigo with the amount of money he probably cost and wages when we've already got really good options in those areas. And then for the last player that we've been linked to this week, a player that I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not very familiar with at all. It has come out though, according to Plenty Gold, that Manchester City have added Club Brugge midfielder and 24-25 Jupiler Pro League Player of the Season, Arden Jassari, to their transfer shortlist, with contact already taking place. The player is valued at more than 35 million euros. And to be honest, I really can't give you much information on whether this is even a Manchester City first team signing or not. It kind of screams a little bit to me of a player that we buy, we loan out, then we sell. But, you know, 35 million is quite a lot to pay for one of those players. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's an immensely talented player that could go into the Manchester City side. I have no idea. But now let's talk about a couple of players that are expected to leave Manchester City this summer, and Jack Grealish is one of those that is very highly anticipated to leave the club this summer. As come out, according to Fabrizio Romano, that the feeling at Manchester City is that Jack Grealish's exit from the club in the upcoming summer transfer window is almost guaranteed. With it then coming out the next day, a loan move for Jack Grealish this summer is currently believed to be more likely than a permanent exit. And to be honest, this kind of makes sense to me. A loan move kind of just makes sense because I really struggle to see a club that is going to be able to pay the wages of Jack Grealish and the transfer fee as well. There's not many clubs that can even do that, let alone clubs that would be willing to pay that money on Jack Grealish. So I think a loan move is probably best for him. I think it's probably the best way that he can kind of get a move this summer. And hopefully, I hope he does well if he goes out on loan, because he's a really, really good player. I do like Jack Grealish, but unfortunately, for what he's given us over the past 2 seasons, for 300 grand a week, it's just nowhere near good enough. And a very interesting piece of transfer news came out according to Fabrizio Romano last night, and that is that Ipswich are considering a move for Manchester City striker Divin Mubama with an initial request over terms. Manchester City have placed a £10 million valuation on the 20-year-old, with serious interest also from Lille. With Mail Sport then reporting that Manchester City's preference is for Mubama to go out on loan, while Ipswich are keen on a permanent transfer. And to be honest, this one just makes complete sense. Manchester City and Ipswich have passed obviously negotiating over the Liam Delap deal. Liam Delap did an absolutely phenomenal job for Ipswich in the Premier League this season, and he's got his move to Chelsea. They're looking for a striker. They had it so good the first time from the transfer business that they did, that they are coming back for seconds, and, you know, who can blame them? And also a quick little update on James McAtee as well, who has been linked pretty much every video that I've made so far on a weekly basis away from the club. And once again, that is the case, as it has come out today that James McAtee is keen on a move to the Bundesliga, given now he has seen similar players shine, while Nottingham Forest and Tottenham Hotspur are also among several Premier League clubs interested. And news also came out about Calvin Phillips today, with Jack Gorn reporting that Calvin Phillips has undergone surgery on an Achilles injury and is expected to be back fit in August. The 29-year-old does not feature in Pep Guardiola's Manchester City plans and will be searching for a move either on loan or permanently. And personally, we've kind of loaned him out too many times at this point. We just need to get him gone. He needs to go and find a permanent home. And, you know, it's a shame the way it's worked out for Calvin Phillips at Manchester City and also on the loans that he's been on. But I think it's about time he leaves the club, to be honest. But that is all of the transfer news over the past week for Manchester City. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below over those stories that I've just given you. And I'm sure we'll have much more transfer news to be giving next week. It does look like the club are trying to act as quick as possible to get those targets in before the Club World Cup. Hopefully we can get to Tjani Rinders done and sealed next week. Hopefully I can be announcing that one in the next video. And on top of that as well, hopefully we can see some progress on the Ryan Cherki front as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Would you like to see Tjani Rinders and Cherki at the football club? Let me know in the comments. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you do want to see more of this content. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.